How to break a trauma bond. So you might have heard of a parable of the kind man and the snake. And as it goes, this kind man was walking through the wilderness to his cabin, and it was a cold winter day. And he looked down on the ground and he saw a venomous snake, but the snake was nearly frozen to death. It was stiff and it was going to die if this man didn't intervene. This man, being a man who's full of compassion, looked down at the snake and he picked it up. It was just frozen stiff. It couldn't move. And he brought it inside to the cabin. He puts it by the fire where it can get warmed up. And he nurses this snake back to health. Once the snake was feeling itself again, it bit the man. Now, this was a venomous snake, so when it bit the man started to die. And with his last dying breath, the man had one question, and he asked the snake, "Why? Why did you bite me when I nursed you back to health?" And the snake says to him, "Well, didn't you know I was a snake?" And so it goes for the kind, empathetic trauma survivors that leave the traumatic environment of their homes where they grew up with abusive mothers and fathers, harsh caregivers, circumstances that were abandoning and punishing, just to find themselves in a romantic relationship with an abuser or still trauma bonded to their abusive parents. And so they may still stay living with their mom or their dad, even though they've proven to be abusers. They may find themselves going into a relationship with a man or woman who's controlling, who's domineering. And through their research, they find out, wow, this person matches the description of a narcissist or a psychopath or a sociopath. And when we look at those terms, we're just talking about a person who is egopathic. Just like you may be an empath, they are an egopath, meaning they're lacking empathy. And whether they're psychopathic or sociopathic, that's just overt and covert to the point where they're breaking laws. They will go so far in their abuse and their manipulation that they have no regard for what is decency on a common or legal level. And so you may have been in a relationship with a narcissistic abuser, a psychopath, or a sociopath, but if you haven't been, it can be difficult to understand why anyone would stay in a relationship with an abuser. The reality is it's harder to get out of an abusive relationship than it is to get out of a healthy relationship. And there's many aspects and layers to why it's so difficult for a person to get out of that. But like the nice man in the illustration, they feel that they can help those abusers. They feel that if they're patient enough, their time that they've put into these narcissists and these sociopaths, the time that they put in may pay off. And one day they'll be rewarded for being patient. But is that actually the case? The reality is, it is unsustainable to remain in a relationship with a narcissistic, sociopathic, psychopathic abuser. It will not pay off for you in the end. It is unsustainable. And so if you're a clinician and you're listening to this as a part of your training for how to help your clients who are trauma bonded, you have to make very clear to them that it is the first step to their healing journey to remove that person from their life. They cannot remain in the relationship with the abuser. And here's why specifically. All narcissists want an unhealthy relationship with you wherein which they are not held accountable. All narcissists want a relationship with you that causes you to be unhealthy, where they are not held accountable. So it is anti-therapy, it is anti-healing to remain in a relationship with them. And so what's the opposite of healing? Deteriorating, getting worse, dying. That is what the relationship with your abuser is. It is a relationship in which you are getting worse, you are dying, and they are making sure of that. Make no mistake, this can be life or death. Remaining in a relationship with a narcissistic abuser, your psychopath, your sociopath, your egopathic neglector, it is killing you. And so we have to help our clients to recognize that. Now, if you yourself are that person, you recognize that you are in this relationship, then you may have learned of this phrase, trauma bonding. You are trauma bonded to this person. That's what makes it hard to get out of the relationship. And what trauma bonded means is that you feel like you're attached, you're loved, you're in love with this person, even though it's to your detriment. It's the word that's used to describe the illogical connection between you and someone who's actually harming you, someone who is actually killing you. One of the things that's keeping you in the relationship is your fear of loneliness, your fear of being alone. But a survivor needs to get to the point where they realize that it would actually be better to be alone than to stay in this relationship. Are you at that point? Remember what the narcissist wants. They want a relationship with you, but they insist that it is unhealthy. They are not open to a healthy relationship. They're not open to one where they will be held accountable. They're only open to a relationship where in which it makes you more unhealthy. So you see, if you were to stay in that relationship on any level, it will leave you depleted, emotionally depleted, financially depleted, physically depleted, spiritually depleted, mentally depleted. That is what the relationship is doing to you. This is the eventuality if you stay in the relationship. The longer you wait, the more it will deplete you. It will continue to make you worse and worse until you are in a state of ill health, at which point then they will discard you, which means drop you like you're a hot potato. So let's recap that. If you stay in the relationship, they will actually make you deteriorate. And then when you are no longer healthy, when you are no longer viable and capable, then they will drop you like you are nothing and move on. Do you want to stick around for that? It can be very difficult for a survivor to move on, again, because they're not operating in logic. They're operating in the amygdala, that is the emotional part of the brain. And so they feel afraid of being alone or being abandoned. And they feel like they're buying into the dream that if they nurse the snake back to health, the snake will somehow be grateful. But really, the snake is just going to bite them because why? It is just a snake. And that is what you're dealing with. Your husband, your wife, they are a snake. The mom, your boyfriend, your girlfriend. Well, can't you just teach me techniques that I can use and boundaries or something? So then I use these boundaries and techniques, and then I'm able to ultimately survive the relationship? No. Of course, boundaries are going to be helpful in any relationship, but they will not solve your relationship problems when you are in a trauma bond with a narcissist. Why? Well, walk through what's going to happen. You start setting boundaries, and how are they going to respond? All right. So they're going to cross your boundaries. They're going to rage out, right? They're going to get ugly and become more abusive. And then what do you have to do if you set a boundary and someone crosses it? What do you have to do? You have to enforce your boundary. How do you enforce a boundary? By removing access to resources. So how are you going to remove access to yourself? Well, you have to walk away. So in the end, you will just have to walk away. So rather than me teaching you a bunch of techniques and boundaries that are going to lead you in the end to having to walk away because now you have to enforce your boundary, it's better if you just walk away. Not to mention, it's entirely unsafe in many cases for you to stick around trying to make the relationship work, especially if you're in a relationship like Jessica, who had a boyfriend that she describes as a sociopath, who's beat her multiple times, landed her in the hospital, who's stolen her car, psychologically terrorizes her, has cheated on her multiple times with women that she knows, continues to threaten to cheat on her anytime he's unhappy, purposely tries to get her to snap, and criticizes her efforts to heal and her therapy. And what does Jessica say when it comes to the idea of moving on? Jessica says, I don't think I'm ready. Her leg's in a cast, her hand is sprained, her face is all beat up, and she says, yeah, but I don't know if I'm ready. Or you could be like Olivia, whose mom calls her fat, ugly, says things like, no wonder your boyfriend left you. And that's just a normal Saturday around the house with Olivia's mom. Although Olivia is 30 years old, she doesn't feel like she can leave and get on her own. She's even under physical threat when she's around her mom. But she says, well, that's my mom. If I don't have her, then I'll have no one, right? And so when we're trauma bonded to an individual, we have that mindset. If I don't have this person, then I'll have nothing, 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 like it's a Whitney Houston song. But the reality is, if you stick with this person, then you'll really see what having nothing is like, because they are there to deplete you. Without empathy, they have nothing stopping them from going to the ugliest, most vile places and doing the ugliest, most vile things to you. They want you to hurt emotionally. They want you to feel lost mentally. It's very important that we wake up and we recognize that it is unsustainable to continue in the relationship with them. Many survivors say, but how do I leave exactly? They feel so lost in the sauce that they don't know the technical steps. So here's the technical steps of leaving. Number one, if it's a marriage, understand that leaving your spouse is not the same as getting a divorce. You don't need to wait for the divorce to leave. If your life is under threat, if your health is under threat, you may need to separate and worry about the legal proceedings, which is the divorce, later. So how do you leave? How do you leave your boyfriend, girlfriend, mom, dad, abusive husband, wife? Well, you're going to need a bank account that is yours, that they're not attached to. And then you're going to need a form of income that brings money into that bank account. Start simple. Grocery store, get a job at a bank. Then you will need a shelter. It's that simple. Once you have your form of income, you have a shelter that you can go to, then you go to that place. It may behoove you to be smart about your technology and recognize that there could be spyware and tracking devices and things like that. right? It's not to be paranoid, but it's to be aware of what is possible because you need to protect yourself from the abuser. Remember, this is life or death. Whether they've laid their hands on you or not, they are seeking to kill you. They're seeking to destroy you. And if it's not physical abuse, then they're seeking to destroy your soul. That's even worse. So with the physical steps already down in your notes, the difficult part for many survivors is understanding how to break the actual trauma bond. They feel like they have soul ties to this person, like they are spiritually bonded to them. They feel like this is their soulmate. They feel like this was their one and only. There's never going to be anyone like them again. They feel afraid to have to face the world being alone. They don't want to think of being with any other person. Plus, they've learned through their life how to justify, idealize, make excuses for these relationships because that's what it was like growing up. But soon they can find themselves like a person at a slot machine, losing money, putting money in, playing again and again to get another little reward, like the reward they once got. You could be like that because you're going through abusive situation, traumatic situation, incident after incident, because you're trying to get it good again, like the one or two times that it was good. Or many suffer from sunken cost fallacy, which is a cognitive distortion where you believe that because you've put so much time in, you've put so much energy in, you've put so much money in, you can't walk away now. If that is the case for you, this is your wake-up call. If you're alive and you can hear this, it's not too late to walk away. Now is the time. When we put a lot of time or energy or money into something, it can be hard to accept that it's lost and we're not going to get it back, and it's not all going to pay itself back in terms of the dividends and everything he promised us and everything she said it was going to be like. But recognize what you still have instead of focusing on what is lost, because then we're looking into the abyss, the endless abyss of all the things that we do not have. Focus on what you do still have. Take that and leave instead of giving up this too. So if you still have some money left, take that and leave. If you still have some life left, some breath left inside of you, take that and leave. If you still have a bit of sanity left, take that and leave, so that you don't continue to fall for sunken cost fallacy, thinking that your best bet, your best plan in life is to keep giving in to something that does not give a return. Kind and empathetic individuals often are putting their hope, their trust into the future faking of the narcissistic counterpart, their partner. Do you know what future faking is? Future faking is a tactic that scammers use in order to get their prey to put faith in them, to believe them. So cult leaders use future faking and they say, come on, you guys, we got to come over here. We're going to set up a nice little paradise on this island over here. Give your money, right? And then they got you buying into this idea that it's all going to be beautiful, and the spaceship is going to come and take us away to our home planet. And as silly as that may sound, you are also in a cult, but you're in a cult of one if you are still with your sociopath or your psychopath. And so you're believing all of the wonderful things that they're telling you. We're going to get married. Hey, baby, don't worry. I'm going to be buying us a house. Some scammers, these future fakers, these psychopaths will actually go as far as to take you house shopping. They have no intention of actually buying the house. They know what they're doing. They will actually take you ring shopping. They have no intention of marrying you. They know what they're doing. It's a psychological technique. It's called future faking. See, they know when they can get you to invest your hope into them, you won't be willing to let it go. They're selling you a fantasy so they get you living not in this reality of abuse, but in this idea that it's going to get better. and my parents are going to accept you, and you're going to be a part of our family, and it's all going to be this big happy family. It's going to be great, and I'm going to settle down, and I'm going to stop using drugs, and I'm going to stop gambling, and I'm going to stop cheating. Don't forget, you picked up a snake. It's going to be the same. In fact, these abusive relationships typically get worse. So we need to acknowledge reality, that we're continuing to pour our hope. Hope is an energy investment. So we're investing our emotional energy when we hope into something. So we're pouring our emotional energy into something that's not giving us any returns. Simple investing economics. If something doesn't give you returns, then you don't invest. That's simple. You got to go by the track record. That's how investors decide what to invest in. Not by what something could be. They go by the track record of what something has been. That's what helps them to know what they can invest in. Because if they just believe the fantasy of what something maybe could be, then every company just comes along and they spin a story, and investors just lose their money. You have to put your hope investment, your energy investment, into something that has a proven track record of returning on your investment. But sometimes survivors feel like it is actually their fault. They feel bad for the mistakes that they have made in the relationship, for the times that they yelled and the times that they hit. They feel bad for the times that they stole and the times that they lied and they've lost their temper. And they blame themselves. They feel like the bad things in the relationship are their fault. They may even feel like they're the bad guy. They may even say, am I the narcissist? But isn't that exactly what the narcissist wants you to believe? Aren't they experts at gaslighting, which is to make you believe in a false reality, to make you think that you are sick when you're not, or to blame when you're not? And all of that gaslighting, it's like a smoke screen that magicians use so that they can hide and disappear. And what magicians do behind all that smoke is they just step inside of a trap door, something really obvious, go behind a curtain. They don't do anything miraculous back there. But all this smoke makes it seem miraculous because then they just disappear. Likewise, your narcissist is using a smoke screen to make you think it's not them. They're trying to disappear when it comes to all the bad stuff. So they smoke screen you by saying, well, you did this and you did that and you did this, and I don't feel safe with you, and you're an abuser. And you're so overwhelmed by all the negative things that they're saying about you that you're just like, wow, maybe I am the problem. Maybe I'm the drama. Maybe I'm the narcissist. And then they disappear behind the smoke screen. It's not me. It's not me. So with the future faking and with the smoke screening and the gaslighting, they've got you wrapped up in a false idea, a false belief that everything good comes from them and everything bad that happens in the relationship is your fault. How do you break out of that? Well, all of that is a part of brainwashing. So I'm going to show you how you can unbrainwash yourself. Because isn't it true that many of us who are stuck in these trauma-bonded relationships are giving into magical thinking, mystical thinking? Like, oh, there's just something about them. There's something just so special about them. I'll never find another individual like them. We have this amazing bond, like we're like bonded, right? We have this soul tie. Wake up. There's no such thing as a soul tie. That's not a real thing. It's not scientific. It's not biblical. When someone says that there's a soul tie, they're saying that they're spiritually connected or bonded to this individual. And their basis for feeling that way is that they just feel the same way we all feel about a person that they love. They have all these good feelings and the person pops up at these perfect times and they're always thinking about the person. They can never stop thinking about them. Even though months are passing and years are passing, they feel emotionally connected. But that's just limerence. It's falling in love, but it's not a spiritual, mystical connection, my friend. In fact, if you're Muslim or Christian, then you're not supposed to be making any human being the number one person in your life. That's idolatry. You're not supposed to worship a human. So rather than having the mystical, magical, false worshipful idea that this person is your everything, why don't we get to reality, which is that each of us could probably find about 13,000 people on this earth that out of the billions that exist, that we could potentially be compatible with. Now, where they are and how we find them, that's a whole nother question. But this is just one of many people that you would have potentially had compatibilities with. What makes it really hard is when someone is so close to being what we want. And that's what you have to recognize about this person. They were close, they were not it. Because they had the right look and they had the right size and they had the right voice and they had the right hair and they had the right ethnicity or language or just whatever it was that was important to you. They had like 80-90% of the right things, but then you're overlooking the fact that there's something about them that is unsustainable. It can't work because of what they want. What do they want? Every narcissist wants an unhealthy relationship with you that causes you unhealth, where they are not held accountable. That can't work. It's unsustainable. How can it work? It cannot. So therefore, they're not your one. They're not your person because it's impossible. So you can waste more time. You can spend more years. How many years have you already put into it? How many years has it been? You can put more years into it, but the conclusion will still come out the same. You'll just be more sick and depleted if you don't get out now. I'm telling you the truth. We may find ourselves having the same fight with them over and over and over again. You know why? Because they're not changing. And you're stuck in the same thinking. It's time to wake up. It's time to recognize that being alone is better than wishing you were. Being by yourself is actually superior to being in this relationship. When we say, well, I feel so bad, maybe it was my fault, reactive abuse is real. We're going to do things at times. We're going to react at times. We're going to scream back at times. We're going to hit back at times. That's going to happen when you're being abused. That's normal. That's a natural reaction. This is why I'm telling you, get out of a relationship that causes you to act in a way that's not your character. Get out of a relationship that causes you to do things that someone else can construe as you breaking law so that they could turn around and then blame you for it and try to make themselves look good. That's why I'm telling you to get out. Reactive abuse is a trap, and they know what they're doing. They purposely push, they purposely prod, they purposely pinprick you until you lose it, because that's what they want. There's a woman who was in Hinduism. She said she felt like she's being punished for a past life, for something she did in a past life. And maybe she owes her abuser in some way. Now we're back in magical thinking. Our job is not to manage eternity's past. Our job is to manage what is in our control right now. And so whether you believe in generational trauma or soul tying or reincarnation, focus on what is in your control, you have a responsibility. Who are you supposed to be caring for? Your number one responsibility is to care for yourself. And that is what you are failing to do. So rather than all of the magical thinking and all of the justifications for why it's okay to stop caring for yourself, recognize that you have one job. It is to care for the self. That's your job. I want to help you. You are brainwashed. If you're in a relationship with a psychopathic narcissist or sociopath and you haven't been able to break out, it's because you're brainwashed. So we have to unbrainwash you. Now, how do we do that? I'm going to give you the work, but you have to do the work. I'll give you 5 ways to unbrainwash yourself from this trauma bond, to break the trauma bond. Okay? It's not harder than is possible because this isn't magical. It's psychological because our brains and our minds are designed to work a certain way. And they work on a system of values. The mind holds your values as being synonymous with the self. So it feels like whatever I value is actually me. It's the most important thing. So I have to protect it, just the same way it would protect the physical body. That's how your mind feels about your values. It says, I have to protect my values because that's who I am. And so it goes through everything possible to try to justify a relationship with a person that you value. This can work great in a healthy relationship with a healthy person. But in a trauma-bonded relationship with an abuser or a narcissist, they are benefiting from your psychological system. And the way it works is on a system of values. So it's because you valued that person, probably because they had the right look, the right hair, the right size, right? They checked a lot of boxes for you. Maybe they reminded you of your father or something like that. Or maybe they have the entitlement that it's my mom. So that means that they have to be the most important thing. But remember, we don't want to make someone magical or be worshipful about our relationship with them. So how do we break out of valuing them so much? Because when your mind is valuing them, it's going to put that bubble around them. It's going to protect them. So what's the move? Step number 1, or method number 1. Whenever you're feeling a good memory toward them, a good thought about them, what you're going to do is recall an awful experience. You may have something pre-written. Whenever you have a good memory, in that moment, you're going to say, oh, I'm having a good memory. And before you get out to all the nostalgia and all that stuff, as soon as you realize I'm thinking about them in a good way, call back a bad experience, an awful experience where they treated you so bad, where they did something that's totally unsustainable, something that you absolutely hated, and bring yourself to that memory and stay there for a moment. And conjure up exactly why this was so bad, why it's unsustainable, and ask yourself, do I want this? And then take it a step further. And I want you to visualize what your life would be like if the rest of your life were like that bad experience. Again, this is method number 1. You have a good memory, a good thought comes up. You're going to visualize a bad experience, and then you're going to take it into the future and ask yourself, what would it be like if the rest of my life were like this bad experience I had with them? Psychologically, why are we doing that? Well, every time you do this, you're helping to build a new neural pathway in the brain. The new neural pathway in your brain will now teach you a new way of thinking about the person. And it will help to unlock them from this old position that you put them in, which is this worshipful, idealized position. Make sense? Here's method number 2. Future pace. Put yourself into a vision of the future, but imagine it without them. You might notice that when they leave for a little while to go to the store or go to work or whatever, you feel good. You come home and they're not there, you feel good. You actually like the time that you have without them. So I want you to expand on that feeling and imagine what it would be like without them, but you're purposely giving yourself a beautiful vision of the future where everything's working out. You can even picture yourself with another person, but you give yourself this vision of the future. Picture what you're wearing, picture where you would be. You just have to stay there for a moment. And you got to do this every day. The vision of the future is built without them. Why? Because part of the reason, part of the way, the method that they're keeping you in the relationship, or what's keeping you in the relationship, is your energy investment, the hope investment that it's going to get better with them. You need to build a new neural pathway around a future without them that trains the subconscious mind to look for, to create that future without them. And it will help you to break free. Technique number 3. You're going to write down a list of their positive qualities, the ones that you really like about them, but you need to follow through to this last point, to the last step of this process. After you write the list, you need to go through and use discounting the positive, which is where you actually argue against or discount why you, the value of each of the things that you mentioned. So you're going to basically tear down the list of good things. For instance, you might say, I really liked her hair and I really like what she did for a living. Then you go in and you say, yeah, but she hated her hair and complained about it all the time. It was also all over the bathtub. And as far as for what she did for a living, it made her stay away for a long time and she used it as an excuse to cheat on me. So you see what I did? I took the 2 good things that I liked about her and I went in and I discounted those positive things. Don't worry, you do this all the time. You do it to yourself, where you say, or people say, oh, you're pretty. And you say, yeah, but you're just saying that. That's discounting the positive. Now we're going to do that with them, but you're going to do it with your whole list of positive things that you like about them. You're going to discount those positive things. Psychologically, why do we do this? It retrains the brain to stop idealizing the person. Your brain has an idea that they're great, that there's something special, that you're everything. Your brain has to relearn how to categorize them. By discounting the positive things, it will realize they're not the dream that you once made them out to be mentally. Technique number 4. All these things have to be repeated on a basically daily basis. They'll retrain the brain. In a matter of weeks, you'll be over the person, by the way. Technique number 4 is creating a list of all the negative qualities of this person. You can do this on a nightly basis. Each thing that you write down on your list, take a moment and meditate on it. Ask yourself why it's unsustainable. Allow yourself to feel the negative feeling that's associated with those bad experiences that you're writing down or those bad qualities. Feel free to be as petty as you want. And technique number 5, mindfulness meditation. Mindfulness meditation is just simply taking time to become aware, cognizant of your present, and become neutral to your past or to anything else. Just a moment where you'll breathe, calm the self, and observe what you're grateful for. Feel your body, feel your blood, feel your heart, and try to stay neutral to any issues with them. This is a part of unlinking your amygdala or deactivating your amygdala. The amygdala is the emotional center of the brain. It's what's keeping you in this. You're so worried about the latest argument, the latest situation. You're going, oh my God, but I feel bad and I was wrong. And mindfulness meditation brings you out of all that and retrains you to be calm. When you're calm, you're more logical. When you're logical, you make better decisions. Utilize these techniques. Use all 5 of them. You have to do the work on a daily basis, but it will train the brain. It will unbrainwash you so that finally you will see things clearly and you can break free of your trauma bond.